Ed, welcome to the Virtual CMO Podcast. I'm so glad you could join us today.
It's great to be here and great to see you again, Eric.
Hey, this is going to be an exciting conversation because you and I go way back in the world of customer relationship management, and the focus of today's episode is going to be all about customer relationship management and analytics. But just to bring sort of the audience up to speed, I want to give them a little bit of a frame of reference as to where we are in this Masterclass series. So we are working on a series talking about building out a strategic marketing plan for your business. And we've talked about things like identifying your target market and ideal customer profile, the importance of product market fit and competitive differentiation, building out a brand story that really resonates with your ideal customer, and then taking that story and building out some compelling marketing messages that then you can use in your marketing programs. From there, we sort of talked about how you can incorporate digital freelancers and content creators into your team to help create some of that real compelling content, and then using marketing automation to really increase your campaign effectiveness. And that's been a great segue into our topic today around customer relationship management and analytics. And before we sort of dive into it, I would love it if you could just give the audience a little bit of background into your expertise in this area and what you're currently working on today.
Sure. So really, there's no need to emphasize the fact that we've known each other since way back. I think the way back part is kind of unnecessary, but sure, we've known each other for a while.
We have indeed. We have indeed.
Yes. Well, actually, probably we met when I was at Quick & Riley, which was the brokerage firm that was owned by Fleet Bank and is now part of Bank of America, probably most commonly known as Merrill Edge right now.
I think that's right.
And you, I believe, were working at Siebel Systems.
That's right.
I was at Quick & Riley leading their CRM initiative when we didn't even know what CRM stood for. Literally, we didn't know what CRM stood for or what it meant or what the vision was. And so for the next 6 or so years, this is going back to 1999. So there, I told you not to go to the way back, and then therefore I threw an actual date with it. So
and you did it anyway, yeah.
And I did it anyway. So this is going back to 1999, and I was put on a project that was 6 months, and we're going to roll out the CRM system, and then you can go back to your full-time job, because I was a financial advisor and I was in regional management and I was an operations manager of one of our largest branches in the Quick & Riley network, and I liked that. I loved it. But they asked me to do this project, and so I did, and here we are X amount of years later, and I'm still in the CRM space. So it's been pretty exciting. And what I've liked about it is that one day I'm a marketing expert and helping with data and driving marketing campaigns and strategies through data. The next day I'm in technology, and the next day I'm in operations or a call center or the sales organization, or I'm in analytics and I'm building charts and graphs, and I'm trying to tell a story through these charts and graphs about where our business is and where our business is headed. So every day you walk in, it's, there's a current theme that's kind of across the bottom, which is using data to be able to improve the customer experience. And whether you're doing that from a technology perspective, a sales perspective, a marketing perspective, a service perspective, or helping executive management be able to use data in a way that allows them to get those aha moments and tell a story, and be able to, instead of using a machete, use a scalpel to be able to determine what they want their business to look like and what they want their strategy to be. So that's where I started. I moved over and joined you at Siebel for a couple of years, and then one of our customers, had literally, they're like, we need someone to help us tell our business intelligence story, and we need someone to help visualize, our data for senior management. So I joined the Bank of New York Mellon in charge of their business intelligence platform, which was at the time Siebel's analytical tool, which became OBIEE, was the name that I don't even know if I know what it stands for at this point, but something like Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition or something like that.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, but we were very successful with that. But eventually, we outgrew the platform and we had to migrate to Salesforce.com. So then I led that effort with a colleague or two. We led that effort to transfer from Siebel to Salesforce, and then I've been working in Salesforce ever since. In the last couple of years, I've moved over to the consulting side, I'm now at Huron Consulting, and I'm responsible for our Salesforce practice for financial services. So helping from a business development perspective, rolling up the sleeves, helping up those customers envision where their CRM strategy needs to be, where it is today, how to make it better. Helping from a business development perspective and getting our message out there, and really helping our clients be successful. And that's ultimately what it is in financial services.
Well, you've definitely got the expertise and the chops to get into this discussion today. And I think what might be helpful is, we just talked about marketing automation in the previous episode and the importance of having a central repository for your data with so many different applications that companies can use, whether it's in their marketing, in their sales efforts, in their service efforts. It's still important to have a central repository for a lot of that data so that you can begin to understand what's going on. And, in the early days, we used to talk about CRM as really that 360-degree view of the customer. Do you still think that that's a solid definition of what CRM is today, or do you think it's really expanded beyond that?
It's a great question. So here's the thing. We talked about that, right? We talked about that from 99 to 2004, 360 review. And you know what? It became actually a negative thing. It became a roll of the eyes in the boardroom when you would say that. And, the technology, the vision was there, but the technology wasn't there for a variety of reasons. We just didn't have what we needed to be able to achieve that vision. I think in the last 3 or 4 years, and what we've seen, Salesforce and cloud and companies moving to the cloud, and machine learning and artificial intelligence and better analytical tools, and more. I don't want to say reliable, but I'm trying to think of a better word than reliable, but more consistent approach maybe to rolling out CRM, and what are some of the core competencies of CRM, and then what you need to look maybe beyond CRM to help with your infrastructure. If you look at Salesforce, they've bought so many companies that at one point I was questioning what their strategy was. And now here we are a couple years later, and it was really to bring that 360-degree view of the customer back to the table and not have everybody roll their eyes, but now say, this is something that is achievable. This is the dream that we had, and now we can get there. So I do think that it's a relevant terminology still today.
Well, I think, in those early days, the mistake that was made is that a lot of companies felt like their product was the center of the universe, but in reality, wherever you implement a product, there are other products that are already there, right? And so the key to being successful, if you are going to have a hub of information, is really to have a strategy around integration. You have to be able to integrate to existing systems and new systems that come along. And in some of those early versions of CRM, there just was not the integration capability that exists today. And so when you look out, whether it's a Salesforce.com, Microsoft Dynamics, we've talked about HubSpot in here, whatever CRM platform you're using, I think one of the keys today is finding something that has an open ecosystem that allows you to have multiple points of integration. What do you think?
I do. I agree with you. I mean, I think there's a couple different things. So everything that you just said, I think, is spot on. But I also think that, and you're seeing this, this has been proven very much by Veeva in the life sciences space over the last, X amount of years, is that the future of CRM is industry specific. What CRM has traditionally been focused on has been the front office. And you're seeing with the purchase of Velocity, you're seeing Veeva as a company that started out with offering industry-specific functionality. What you're seeing is that it's important to connect the front, the middle, and the back office, right? And so what you said complements that, because the word I said was connect. It's important to connect the front office to the middle office to the back office. And what CRM had done in the past is it did a really good job with the front office, and it owned the front office, but it really didn't do a very good job of connecting the middle and the back office. And you still ended up having silos of data and silos of operations and silos of processes and disconnects where the customer could get lost or get the transition wasn't necessarily smooth from the front to the middle to the back office. And you're starting to see that now more and more. If you look at, if you look, for example, at Velocity and from an insurance perspective, what they've done to be able to take CRM financial services cloud at Salesforce, extend that beyond to the middle office and then into the back office, and really allow companies like Airbnb to become an insurance company and a disruptor in not years, weeks, right? Take that functionality and be able to, get people up and deploying using the Salesforce as a platform, and then complementing that with, traditional CRM. And it's a new way of doing business. So absolutely, I think that, we didn't have the technology back then. We didn't have the connectors. You're seeing that now with, many tools, MuleSoft being one. But now you can really connect these really silos of business processes together to have that end-to-end experience, which is really the 360-degree view, right?
For sure.
So
when you, as a consultant now, go into companies, do you find that most of them have some sort of a CRM strategy in place, or are there still a lot of companies that really don't have what we would consider a CRM strategy implemented within their company? Maybe they're still doing things off spreadsheets, or it's all data scattered across multiple systems. I'm sure it depends whether you're in a small company or a large company, what may exist. But what are you seeing out there in the marketplace today?
So a couple different things. One is, I think that most companies have, most sizable companies have a CRM strategy, right? The challenge I think that you're seeing out there is that strategy is 10 years old. And in the case of someone who's deploying Salesforce, for example, Salesforce is a very different tool today than it was 10 years ago. And the functionality, be it industry-specific functionality or Salesforce as a platform where you can tailor the functionality to your industry, didn't exist. So what we're seeing right now with customers is that there's a lot of help that's needed in going from where they were to where they need to be with their CRM strategy. So that's one thing. I do think that there are some companies that are looking at what they've done in the past and saying, okay, it's probably easier to start over and to take advantage of this out of the box than sit back and reevaluate everything that we've done over the last 10 years and figure out what stays, what goes, what needs to be converted, what out of the box functionality now exists to take it over. So there are some cases where you're helping customers not necessarily move from old to new, but rather take the old, use it to be able to build a better new. So that's one place. And then when you talked about spreadsheets, and I think it's funny because where you see spreadsheets a little bit more, and it is also sub-vertical specific. So sometimes you'll see spreadsheets used more heavily in somewhere like the mortgage business. But you also sometimes see it product-based, right? So instead of having a robust BI strategy, they'll have, spreadsheets, thousands of spreadsheets going around looking at the data, and everybody's trying to find the latest copy of the data. And we can't move to BI yet. We're just not ready there as a company because our data isn't there yet. Well, you know what? Your data is not going to be there unless you move to a BI strategy, because there's no brighter spotlight than a BI strategy that is going to bring your data to the attention of senior management. And they're going to say, this doesn't make sense. Why is this showing up here? Why is this not up to date? Why do I have an opportunity in here that's 3 years old? Why do I have? And then all of a sudden, when senior management starts to shine that flashlight on things, miraculously, things get fixed. Things, become a little bit clearer. The picture in 6 months of the data is a lot better than where it was today. So I liked it when, and you hear that with companies. I understand, it's like, gosh, I don't know that we're ready. If there's that self-doubt in there. Boy, everybody's farther ahead than we are. Guess what? They're not.
Yes.
They have problems just like you do. They might be different problems that they're trying to juggle, but everybody's trying to get through the historical data and legacy systems and everything that they've inherited to move forwards, especially in financial services. And so you're seeing a lot of change from a BI perspective. You're seeing a lot of old and new from a CRM perspective. A revisiting of the strategy. I think it needs to be revisited probably about every 5 to 7 years. And whether that's a endorsement of where we're going and continue to go on that path, or it's a little bit of a shift or a heavy lift. It all depends.
I think that's really good, because you do hear that a lot from companies that say that, well, I don't know where to start. My data's not in a good place. You get the arguments about the expense of it. You get the arguments about not having time to implement. But I think what's really interesting is, a lot of people who listen to this podcast are small and mid-sized businesses. But the fact is, whether you're a business of one or you're, GM, AT&T, Boeing, you name the largest enterprise companies out there, there is room for CRM in your strategy, right? And there's never a bad time to start. The bad time to start is not ever starting. You need to get a process underway to start collecting that data, because nobody's data is perfect.
Nope.
But you have to start at some point collecting it.
Eric, the other thing that I would say to that, and I am a firm believer in this next sentence that I'm about to say, like this is 100% of what I believe and what my passion is if your CRM strategy is driven by IT and not by the business, you are not going to be successful. I'm not dogging our friends on the IT side. They're important partners. We absolutely need them. But CRM is a mindset. It is a business strategy. It is coupled with the technology. You need as a company to be able to say, my marketing team, I have a marketing team. You're not going to give marketing over to technology or to some third-party company to do everything from a marketing perspective. Yeah, you might have help and you might have assistance, but the marketing team in your company owns marketing. And the same thing needs to happen from a CRM perspective. Your CRM team is a business professional team that is this hybrid of people that understand the business process, that understand marketing, that understand technology, that understand sales, that can put all these different pieces together and continue to drive the strategy and have the executive presence to sit in front of senior management and say, look, your data's bad, you got to do something about it. And push those buttons when they're not necessarily the most popular buttons to push, but that's what this role does. And you look back on December 31st at the year, whatever that might be, and say, where did I start and where did I end? And you will see that needle move. And you do see, a little bit of moving that mountain. And I know personally from my experience at the Bank of New York Mellon, we moved mountains in those years. And it was because our CRM strategy was driven by the business. So again, CRM strategy must be driven by the business and partner with technology in order to be successful.
And I think, we talked a little bit about the fact that our previous masterclass was on marketing automation. And I think the point that we're trying to make with CRM is that, marketing automation is sort of before the sale. And what happens with CRM is it gives you the ability to understand how a customer was marketed to, what kind of offers and interactions they responded to, how they actually came to have visibility within your organization. And then as a salesperson, then the idea is that as you start to sell to these particular customers, you can see what those interactions were. You can see maybe what offers or lead generation activities spark this customer's potential interest in your products and services. And then through the use of email outreach and proposal generation and all these different sales tools, you have all of this information sort of bound together in a customer record, so that finally when they end up becoming a customer and then they need to be serviced, this entire history of all of their interactions, of how they became a customer, what the process was of selling, what contracts maybe they signed, et cetera, all of this is together in one record. And obviously, once you're starting to collect that level of information, it's all consolidated in one place. Then you can start to run some pretty interesting reports and dig into the analytical side of this, right? You can start to say what's working from a marketing perspective, what offers are working the best, what kinds of promotions are working the best, how is my sales team doing, what are they reaching out to these leads often enough, are they converting the leads at the pace that we want them to, et cetera, et cetera. There's a wealth of data that then becomes available to you to really understand how your business is performing.
And do I have that client journey map from prospect to customer and beyond mapped out? Because what people sometimes tend to think, and I'm not not just from a marketing perspective, but sometimes from a sales perspective, but in general is, oh, Eric became my client because of this one source, right? He got a referral from Ed, or he already had a relationship with another line of business, or the salesperson worked for 6 months, or it was that marketing campaign that we sent them out to them. And it's never one source. It's never one source. It's many sources, and don't be afraid to double count. There's nothing wrong to say that, look, we had to have 12 touch points with this customer, with this prospect, in order to make them a customer. And it's okay to have 12 touch points, right? It shows that your marketing team and your sales team and your data and your technology and CRM and all those things are tied together. But it's really important to have that journey mapped out, that you take that prospect through the lead process. You have the ability to create the opportunity from the lead. So it tracks the source, it tracks the lead, it ties it to the opportunity. You can see the life cycle of the customer journey, and then you can ultimately show ROI. I was working with a clinical resource organization that was really struggling with how to show ROI on on their marketing campaigns, and they didn't have the customer journey mapped out. They didn't understand what happens to leads and when those leads get distributed, and how many are being followed up on, and how many are created to opportunities, and what opportunities are won versus what is lost. And I did, at my Quick and Riley days, starting back to the beginning of our conversation, I did my Six Sigma training on lead management. And it's so important to be able to have that journey process mapped out, because especially with artificial intelligence and the way that we're using data to be able to enhance and score leads, and it's getting better and better and better, the conversion rates on leads continue to go up. I can tell you my story, and I remember I did Six Sigma, and that's so detailed. Here I am 20 years later, I remember the numbers. And it was 27% of all the leads that came into Quick and Riley from Fleet Bank were followed up on. 27% were followed up on. Of those 27%, 86% actually became accounts. Okay. And of those 86%, the average balance was somewhere close to $100,000. It was like 86.7 or something like that, or somewhere in that space. But my point is that if we just followed up on 50% of the leads, or 90% of the leads, if we had that high of a conversion rate, the amount of assets under management, which is key in financial services, especially from a wealth management perspective, would soar. And you'd really be able to, so leads and the customer journey are critically important.
I think what you said is so interesting there, because many times, at least from a marketing perspective, there's this tendency just to keep throwing dollars at things and doing more, when in fact there's a lot that you can do by just moving the needle a little bit in one direction or another. As you said, maybe converting a higher percentage of the leads that are coming up and following them. Many organizations that I've worked with, they don't really even understand how many touch points it takes, before you get a hot lead, how many, or what is the average length of time that it takes to close a deal, once somebody starts working on it. How many outreaches does it take from a salesperson before, they have engagement with that contact? And some of these things are so important to understand, because you might be one or two interactions away from being successful with a whole lot more leads if you just look at what your averages are. You may need to invest more in your marketing if it takes more interaction points, if it takes more outreach to be able to bring that customer in. And I think all of this starts to get uncovered when you start to have analytical tools and dashboards and these kinds of things. Then that's all built on a strong foundation of data, because then you can start to see these kinds of trends. Absolutely.
Strong foundation of data. One of the gaps, I think, and this is probably a little bit of a controversial statement, because all of the CRM tools will say, oh, we absolutely have this. But I've seen personally, from a financial services perspective, is that for a variety of reasons, the synchronization that takes place between your email and calendaring platform and your CRM tool is less than ideal. And what ends up happening is, if you're trying from a marketing perspective to find out what activity is taking place with customers, oftentimes that activity is, the lead is being pushed to CRM, the emails, the telephone calls, the calendar invites, all that information might be sitting, we'll say Outlook instead of email platform, just for the sake of it. But if you don't have those two things connected and the ability to do analytics on top of that, then you really can't see, not only from a marketing perspective, but from a sales perspective, what are those interactions with the customers? When are those interactions, picking up, so that I know that I'm getting closer to the end of my sales cycle? Or when are they slowing down and I might be at risk of losing this customer, or falling off the preferred list of through their shortlisting of whatever project they're looking to do. So at Huron Consulting, we've partnered with an organization that helps us do that counter synchronization for customers, and I think it's a gap in CRM. And I think that it's vital to be able to have this piece, because it not only helps with that lead distribution, and then with the analytics and with machine learning, but marketing automation and then lead management. It's the glue that kind of sits throughout that entire process from a CRM perspective. So it's a big activity management and synchronization of calendars and email behavior and contact information is a critical part. It's a super important part of CRM. It has to be number 1, 2, or 3 part of your CRM strategy in order to be successful.
A great example, I experience this all the time, is, on my own websites, I have contact us forms. People are interested in learning more about products and services. And the great thing about having it built on top of a platform, like I personally use HubSpot, is that I can see all of the web pages that somebody has visited prior to filling out that contact form. And I can guarantee you that if somebody came to my website and they simply went to a contact form, chances are they're not a very hot prospect, right? Because they haven't done any research. They haven't looked around. They haven't understood what products and services my consulting company is offering. They just went right to a contact form. Whereas if you can see somebody was reading articles on a specific topic, was drilling into pages, you can see sort of what their path was through the website. That gives you a little bit better idea that, oh yeah, this person really does have some interest. They're really trying to understand what kind of services I provide. And that's just a simple example. But again, it's keeping all of this content, this contact information, this outreach information, this information that you're gathering about your prospective customer all in one place. You can start to build out a theory, if you will, of what is really going on in this customer's mind to see if they are potentially a hot lead or not.
Absolutely. There's nothing more that I can add to that, because you're absolutely right. That's it's the ability to have that view of what the customer's doing, and the balance, by the way. What comes with this then is the training from the client-facing staff. I'm going to say client-facing staff for salespeople or service people, or whatever, or internal sales desk that calls up the person, says, I see you went to these 5 websites. Okay, that becomes the creepy factor, right? So you got to balance out the knowledge that you have to be able to help the customer, but not be able to be like, wait a minute, what are they looking at? Everything that I'm doing, right? Because in today's world, I think we're more sensitive to that, especially with what you've seen with some of the data breaches and just information being used in ways that it probably shouldn't be used. So it's that balance then from a training perspective, is to make sure the client-facing staff in general know how to use that way to be able to move the process forward and not scare the customer off.
Oh, that's right. You have to be careful about what information you use, for sure. But it reminded me of something else that I think is a real value of CRM as well. If you have a sales team, for example, that is kind of doing their own thing, they're managing their leads on their own, maybe they've got their own spreadsheet or whatever. What happens if tomorrow they leave? So if all of that information isn't in a central repository, not only are you not able to track it and understand the analytics behind it, but when that salesperson goes, or you have employee turnover, or people get promoted, whatever it may be, you don't really have any interaction history that you can go back to. So I view another real benefit of a CRM system is being able to keep all of that data centralized, so you can easily reassign accounts if you need to. You can reassign opportunities, reassign contacts, whatever you need to do, because it's all in one place.
Yeah. So what you've just said in some areas of the financial services space scares the hell out of the end user, right? Because their value that they bring to the organization is the fact that I have the relationship with Eric. Eric is my customer. Yeah, I work for, ABC Investments, making up the name of a company. Yeah, I work for ABC Investments, but Eric is my customer. And if I put all of my information about Eric into a CRM system, then what value do I bring? Well, there's a couple different ways to answer that question. One is technology is never going to replace the relationship and the bond, the trust, the experiences that you and I have together as a customer to a service provider. All right. But, I think that the way companies need to look at their CRM strategy is twofold. Is what am I doing to the desktop to inspire or encourage people that are concerned about giving their data over or turning their data over and putting it into a system like this? What am I going to do to make their job easier, to give them the ability to make more money, to be able to get that 360-degree view of the customer, to be able to add real value to their job so that they're not putting in their information in the system because management wants them to, but because it adds real value to their job on a daily basis and they make more money. I wrote a white paper, and I'm a believer of this as well, is that, the desktop, especially in financial services and somebody who's like an insurance agent or a wealth manager or a relationship manager at the bank, the desktop is a competitive advantage. If you are not investing in the desktop so that people can do their job more efficiently, that they can do twice as much as what they were able to do 5 years ago in half the amount of time, they're gonna look to go somewhere else that can make them more money, because everyone's going to give them that great signing bonus or the difference between getting paid at firm A versus firm B compensation structure for the assets that you have under management is not going to be that different. It's how can you pull more out of that asset base and out of those assets under management, out of that customer base that you have, so that you can make more money. And your technology and your desktop is going to do that. It not only helps you with retention, how do I keep those top performers, right, and keep them happy at my firms so that I can continue to make money and can continue to invest in the desktop? And then two, how do I recruit? If I can show that ABC Investments has a better desktop than 1, 2, 3 investments, and our people are making more money under the same amount of assets that somebody else has, then that's something that you really need to look at. So the desktop is a competitive advantage.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. It's not something that you need to be scared about. It's really something that you can use as a differentiator. And as we sort of bring things to a close here with our session today, I know that you do a lot of work with Salesforce.com, and for specific businesses, that's going to be a great solution. But again, we've got very small companies that are part of our audience here, as well as very large ones. Do you have any tips that you would say, looking out at the marketplace between all the different kind of CRM offerings, as to maybe some criteria that people should use to say, these are some systems I should look at?
It's really about your business requirements. It's about your budget and your business requirements, right? I mean, Salesforce started out as that small and medium-sized business. Remember, we at Siebel, and this was the time that you and I were there, we were selling to, these huge organizations out there. And we looked down on Salesforce and said, well, they're only for small and medium-sized businesses. And now, I know when it happened. It happened in 2004. It happened in 2004 when Merrill Lynch bought Salesforce and replaced their Siebel system with Salesforce, that Salesforce then became the enterprise choice, or a choice for large enterprises, right? So in my opinion, they still have dedicated resources for small and medium-sized businesses. So there's a place there for Salesforce, but it all depends. It's about your budget. It's about your journey. It's about your requirements. It's about knowing what your priorities are. Having either someone internally that can help you with a methodology to come up with the answers, because ask 5 people, they're going to have a different list of what the top priorities are. How do you get through an organization and have consistency across an agreement across what those top priorities are, or business requirements are? So having a methodology to uncover that, and then to use that method, to use those requirements to evaluate the different tools that are out there. Most CRM solutions can do a lot of the same things that other solutions can do. Yes, that's a very broad general statement. That when you get down to the nitty gritty, there's definitely differentiators between the different tools. But from a basic contact management perspective, there's a lot of choices out there. You have to find the one that aligns with where you are today, but don't forget about where you need to be tomorrow, right? Because if this is implemented right, that utopia that you're trying to get to is going to arrive faster through an implementation of CRM. And so you need to make sure that it is a tool that can grow with your organization as your organization grows and changes as well.
I think that's a great point. We talked at the beginning of the program here about the importance of integrations, and you definitely want a solution that can grow with you. You want a solution that will integrate to the other tools that you're going to use, because the CRM system isn't going to do it all. You're going to need other tools in your stack, and you want to make sure that there's integration capabilities, and that whatever company you choose, they've got a real desire to have as open an ecosystem, I think, as they can.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think this has been great, Ed. This is a topic that I know both you and I are very passionate about. And CRM, I believe, whether you're a solopreneur or you're a large enterprise company, is a critical piece to have as part of your technology stack. And the sooner you get it implemented and start collecting that data, the better off you'll be. So, just to wrap things up here today, I'd love just for people to know where they can learn more about you, where they can learn more about Huron Consulting. Give us the pitch.
So I'll tell you, when you said wrap things up here, I'm kind of surprised, because you and I could go on probably for another 2 hours on this particular topic and continue to have a great discussion around CRM. So what I would say to your listeners and to your customers, if this conversation inspired you, hopefully gave you some insights on your CRM strategy, pick up the phone, give me a call. I'm over at, you can find me on LinkedIn, Edward Garry, Garry, because everybody forgets that second R in my last name, but I'm over at Huron Consulting. One thing that I love about Huron Consulting is that, we look at the entire business process. We're focused on transformational change and using technology to be able to do that, versus a development organization that's just implementing a tool because, you have a strategy that, you've come up with necessarily on your own that might be siloed for a particular business. Anyway, I lead our Salesforce and CRM practice over at Huron Consulting, and I would look forward to having this conversation with any of your customers or anyone that's listening to the audience. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
That's great. And I'll make sure that we have all those links in the show notes so that people can find you. But this has been a great conversation. It's something that we're passionate about. And I'm just so impressed at what has changed over the years since we first got involved in CRM. A lot of acquisitions in the space, a lot of new competitors. It's an area that clearly the marketplace has embraced. And, if you're going to be a business, I can't recommend strongly enough that you get a CRM system in place to be able to support your business and grow your business.
Driven by the business.
Driven by the business. Absolutely. Okay. And this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk. And we will make sure to have everything linked up so that people can find you online.
Sounds great, Eric. Good to see you again. And I look forward to the next time we get an opportunity for our paths to cross. Always puts a smile.
Sounds great. Same here. Thanks.
Okay. Talk soon.